Hey, entrepreneurs, business owners, and leaders, welcome to the Thrive Collective. Remember, this is your show to help you make more money, avoid costly mistakes, and fully integrate your faith into your life and leadership. I am Rob Hughes, your host, and it's an honor to serve you through this platform. Hey, I'm excited today. We got a special guest, Brad Alexander, a fellow StoryBrand certified guide, is going to be sharing with us important topic I think any business owner is navigating, and that's ultimately the mistakes that we can make. There are three ways that many businesses are dropping the ball when it comes to their customers. But Brad's going to show us three ways that we can overcome that challenge today. So I'm so excited to have him on the call with us. Hey, listen, business is a matter of stewardship. And as a business owner, you have been entrusted with a product, with a service, with a team, with customers, perhaps. Just let this serve as a gentle and loving reminder that how you interact with others, the relationship, how you steward each conversation with clients, with team members, with customers, how you plan for product launches and ideas within your business, all of that is a matter of stewardship, because when you steward the resources that have been given to you, whether that's somebody else's time, whether that's the ideas, the actual physical, tangible assets, and so on, the way that we treat each of those elements is an act of obedience and stewardship. God has entrusted you with these relationships for a reason. And the truth of the matter is, the reason it transcends you, business owner. It goes beyond your financial gain. How you interact with people this side of heaven is truly a reflection of your trust for the Lord. And so I just want to encourage you in that. Some of you, whoever's listening to this right now, there's somebody out there who needed to hear that as a gentle reminder that each decision we make is indeed an act of stewardship and obedience. Because let's face it, this side of heaven, at best, we get 100 years to shape our faith. And then we have an eternity to live in the joy of that faith beyond. So make wise choices this side of heaven to really surrender and act in that stewardship mindset. I want to encourage you in that. The cause that you're on is greater than you. And so part of that stewardship involves, navigating decisions in business, working with customers, working with others. And so today we've got StoryBrand certified guide, Brad Alexander, who's going to be joining us on the Thrive Collective. So excited. Brad is the owner and leader of Clear Message Marketing, a StoryBrand certified guide designed to help businesses accelerate their growth using digital marketing tools and StoryBrand messaging framework. He is an absolute expert when it comes to communication. He's worked with leaders across a wide range of disciplines, but the focus for Brad is helping to create simple words out of complex ideas. So I think we all know this Thrive Collective. It can be possible when you're so close to what you do, you have a hard time being objective and talking about it clearly with others. And so Brad and his team really help businesses to do that well. So on a personal note, Brad's married. He and his wife live in Arkansas, and they got three boys. And I'll tell you, as a father of two boys myself, I know what it's like to have boys running around the household and how busy that can be. So, hey, Brad, welcome to the Thrive Collective. It's such a joy to have you on.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Man, I'm really excited to be here. I love getting to do this. Honestly, I wish I could just do this all day for lots of days, just talk with people about business and share ideas. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's so cool to have you on the show and to share some of your wisdom. So today, Brad, it's a joy to have you on. You're going to be talking about the three ways that a lot of businesses might blow it when it comes to working with their customers. But more importantly, you're going to share with us some tips and tricks that can help us overcome these three natural pitfalls. So what would you like to share today? I'd love to hear.
Yeah. So as just in my own experience of working with different people on their marketing, that inevitably leads to sales, hopefully, which then leads to relationships with customers. And something that I guess, discovered in that process of consulting and talking to my clients about how to really give the most meaningful experience to their customers. There's some things that I've just continually come up, and I boiled them down in here just to three assumptions that I think a lot of business owners make. I make them, we all make them when it comes to thinking about our customers and how that applies and affects how we do business with them after we get the sale. or in the process of trying to make the sale. And so, yeah, there's 3 assumptions that I thought we could walk through, and I've got some tips for each of them on how you can fix it if it comes into that. And so we can walk through them one by one if you like, or I can just kind of start going with, whichever one you'd like to go, Rob.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I think we'll all be able to relate to each of these. Let's take that first one. So there's a first assumption that a lot of businesses make. What is that, Brad?
Yeah, one of the biggest that's in play is that you assume that your customers are just like you.
Mm.
You assume that your customers are just like you. You love your product, you love your service, you created it or started doing business with it because you're passionate about it and you love it. And so there's an automatic assumption that it's just the way our brains think, is that everybody else is like me. Here's what I think about it. And so obviously everybody else thinks those same things. When you love what you do and you're an expert, you can kind of sit down and go all nerd out on the content with in-house with your team, and you love to learn about it. But we forget that while you or I sit down and think about our products and services all day, because that's our business, our customers aren't doing that. They barely think about it. And the only reason they're thinking about it when they start talking to you is because something's wrong and they want to get it fixed. You're passionate. You know how this could change their lives. You know what outcomes they could experience when they use your stuff or buy from you or take that thing home. But they're just not ready to be that excited about it. They're not like all on the hype train like we are. They don't care about all the fancy little nuances or the complicated details. They just want their problem to stop, and they're looking for somebody to help.
I think that is so relatable, especially to you, entrepreneur, who started your business. A lot of you started you had a background as a technician in any discipline or practice that you've come out of, and at one point you said, "Hey, I wonder what it would look like to begin my own business with this. How could I spin out and create my own venture?" And
Yeah.
as you did that, you started to build a business, and from the ground up, you have a level 10 understanding, like a brain surgeon, understanding all of the synaptic connections and the neural pathways of a brain. You have a level 10 understanding of your product or service. And I think what I hear you saying, Brad, is that customers, they're not geeking out like we are.
Right. Yeah.
And I
Well,
think that is so, so true. Yeah.
right. Well, there's even when I talk about this with people, they'll start to kind of feel bad that they love it. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not a matter that it's wrong to feel that way. Like, obviously you love what you do, but you got to remember that you had your own growth experience of passion for what it is that you do. And at this level, like you said, you're at a level 10 of depth. The word picture I try to give is, man, when you're running a business and you love it and you love what it does and the intensity you have about it, it's kind of like it's the same level of power behind a Ferrari. And you are
Mm.
just firing down the road, loving this car. You know all the nuances, the subtle ways it turns and tight corners and how to shift it into overdrive and all that stuff and when you need to do it. So you're just going down the highway at like 180 miles per hour. And then here comes your customer, and you're just zooming by, and they're getting onto the on ramp, and they're riding a unicycle, like they're just trying to balance and keep up. And sometimes we can, by the way we think and the way we communicate and the way we act, we can assume that they are driving a Ferrari too, or at least like a Mustang or something, and forget that no, they need help being brought up to speed, and they're not going to get there as fast as you are, especially if they're on a unicycle. You need to slow down, get out of the car for a minute, and just face reality that you are not your customer. You can't treat them like you. You got to meet them where they are, which is right in the middle of just being mad or frustrated about their problem. And then if you start there and just relate to them right there on that level, then that goes so much farther in building trust and winning them over for the long haul.
So what I hear you saying, I know we talk about this in StoryBrand, as we're both StoryBrand certified guides.
Right.
There's those two ingredients that are so essential. The first one is empathy.
Yeah.
Like for you to really understand their problem and their pain is to express a sense of that empathy, way different than sympathy. Sympathy might be the Ferrari on the unicycle where you're speeding past saying, too bad, so sad, come on, speed up.
Right.
And
Right.
empathy is like, hey, park the Ferrari, get out of the car, grab a unicycle, say, man, this is tough to pedal this way. Let's find a different way together. And that's
Right.
empathy, man. That's so, so different.
Yeah.
So like, okay, understanding, Brad, that companies might assume naturally, and maybe not even consciously, but by default, that their customers are just like them. How does that impact some of the collateral that a business owner would be creating for themselves, their website, brochures, sales materials, things like that? Like, wouldn't that have impact and influence in how they're trying to communicate through digital means as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that, again, you and I operate in the StoryBrand world where we really point that out in the front facing marketing stuff, which is legitimate because we're trying to make a connection and make a sale. And so there's outside sales materials, your website, the kind of content you're posting on social media, the things that you're hosting for webinars or marketing offers or product development, or maybe seasonal promotions that you're trying to put together. It all impacts that language first, and the way that you approach those things first. We think, I need money, so how can I get people to pay me money, versus I want people to know that I can help them solve a problem. How can I make sure they understand that I can help them solve a problem? And those aren't that you need to flip that around. And then how, obviously, I want to make money doing that. And so you gotta, and that's part of how to fix this really, is you got to look at all of that stuff with fresh eyes. Product descriptions, websites, sales materials, all the stuff is, am I being as simple as I can be? Am I trying to relate this to my customer's problem? And if I'm not, or if I'm too close to it, then it's probably good. I would even say to pay an outsider like yourself or like me or somebody else to come in and just look through it and be honest with you about it and ask, and they can say, hey, here's where I'm confused. I don't know this, man. There's a pediatric dental client that I was working with, and we were working on their messaging and stuff, and they were trying to figure out if they should redo their website. And so we just listed out the questions. I said, what are the top 5 questions that parents want to know before they even show up, that you feel like you're having to answer over and over again? And we lined them all out. And I said, okay. And I pulled up their website, and I pulled out my phone, and I gave it to somebody who had never been to their website before in the room. I said, I want you to go find the answers to those 5 questions. And we're going to see how long it takes. And I hit start. And you could just feel the panic go through the room. And I had a good relationship with them. I wasn't trying to be mean. I was like, let's just see how long, if somebody's on your website, if this is the first place they're looking, let's see how long it takes them. And I think it took close to 6 minutes to find the answers to all of that, which in the relatively conversation doesn't take that long. But there's nobody in the world that's going to take the time to fish 6 minutes on your website for the most important thing they're looking for. And so it's that kind of level of just thinking, like, how can I make this easier for my, and beyond just, hey, sell me the package. I'm thinking, like, what are my next steps? What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to prepare for whatever it is? Like that next level of empathy, like you're saying, to really know what is in my customer's head.
That is so powerful. I love your idea too of hiring an outsider. I think of like Tiger Woods or Phil Mickelson, or you pick your golfer. Quite frankly, they could probably set up an iPhone that records their swing, like their golf swing,
Yeah.
and they could probably self-evaluate and diagnose it. But if they were to do that and at a pro level, you would laugh at them and think that's silly. So
Right.
what do? They hire a swing coach, somebody from the outside who could diagnose
Right.
their swing issues. They're professional grade golfers, some would say the best in the world.
Right.
But yet they still bring in an outsider to bring that objective voice of truth. And I love the exercise, that 6 minutes of actually having somebody hunt out those top 5 questions. I think that's a great idea, Brad. And it's eye opening. So
It
tell us, I
is.
mean, we want to know that they don't have to hunt 5 or 6 minutes any longer, right? You kind of elevated those questions a bit.
Some of them, yeah, yeah. We were able to get that teed out and make sure that some of that stuff is happening faster. But they could feel the pain on it for sure. And I think, Rob, the other thing I'll say in this is, and we'll get to this in the other things, I think the other assumptions is that this assumption we make needs to go beyond just the marketing. And I think
Yes.
that's the big, it's into the other materials or onboarding or on ramping stuff that you do with your customers. How can I empathetically sit in the seat of my customer for the first time and walk through what it looks like to do business with me? And where am I not being understood? What questions do I have? And that's the kind of stuff. This is where that goes to the next level. Yeah, make the sale, but then what happens when they talk to your staff across the desk? Are they operating with that same mentality of, hey, I want to help you, I want to be empathetic, and I want to be as simple and clear as possible?
Yeah. Powerful. Powerful. All right. So I love it. It's, the brass tacks here is that you are not your customer. Your customer is not you. Think about the world through their eyes, express that empathy, and position your entire message and experience, the client journey experience, from that perspective. Um,
Yep.
what's the other? You said you've got three of them here. So what's the second idea for us, Brad?
Yeah, the second assumption that we make, and this one's kind of funny, I think, but you assume that your customers like to read. Um, you assume that your customers like to read. You make a sale and you think, okay, I'm going to send them all the information because I know they're going to want to read all of it. And you know what your customers like to read? They like to read great novels. They might like to read great business books. They like to read things that are pleasurable. You know, the things they hate to read: long, complicated proposals, text heavy brochures and flyers, boring descriptions of products and services, paragraph loaded sales decks, onboarding packets, instructional material. It's just sometimes the stuff and I've had to look at my stuff on this too. Sometimes the things that we expect our customers to read, it's just ridiculous.
Hmm.
They just want their questions answered. They want to know what to expect next, but we're giving them content that sometimes looks like it's like on board with like a master's level term paper, you know? It's just, we kind of forget that after we think they've paid us money, that they're super fired up about all the work we want them to do to get their product or service or whatever.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. In fact, we are in our agency, we're doing some experimenting with video email instead of text email,
Yeah.
just to see the engagement. And I'll tell you, if you're not using a tool like Loom or Vidyard or BombBomb or some other,
Right. Right.
video embeddable quick form, you're probably missing out. And I can't say that as a blanket statement across the board for every industry, but the
Sure.
reality is, people we are finding would rather watch a 15 to 30-second highly customized, highly tailored video than they would read a full page email that's hyper customized to them. And the
Right.
click, yeah, it's incredible. They want
Yeah.
simple bite sized chunks.
Yeah. And I think it's just that we forget, like, we're obviously visual learners. Our brains take things in visually. But so much of that, as you know, from human to human interaction, is so much of that personal nonverbal. And so, any way that you can translate that into anything else that you communicate is always a step in the right direction. Obviously, those things cost money, or those tools take an investment. And so, you don't have to do that. But if you can, and they're not much depending on your budget, they're not that much. They do make a difference. But even if you can't get to that point, it's, look at just the volume. Don't even read it. It's just like, how much visually, if I'm looking at this on a piece of paper, does this just look like something that's going to make me tired to read? Because it's so much easier to write. I want to get all the details. I want to get all out there. I want to make sure I don't leave something out. And there's a good heart in that I want to make sure they know what they need to know. But editing it and simplifying it and whittling down that written information is a really major first step in great customer service. And it doesn't just keep the communication channels open, but your customers aren't going to, they're not going to dread the next email they get from you because they know how heavy it's going to be. It's like, oh crap, I got an email from them. I might have to get a cup of coffee and sit down for a while. Like, that's not how you want them to feel when they get your stuff, right? But we just don't think about it.
Yeah, and I think it goes both ways. I mean, on our end, certainly, if you're listening to this, you have control of the emails that you write. And for those who are receiving client or customer emails that are 16 pages long, send this podcast episode on over to them and have them listen to Brad's point here. Because I think, we've all gotten those emails before that are, 2, 3, 4 pages, of a single spaced, that somebody just wants to share what they're really excited about. Again,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
as a StoryBrand, or as a StoryBrand certified guide, I want to come alongside of them to help create clarity in
Right.
that. But my goodness, some of it is a little bit heavy lifting to sift through.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of some things, like you just can't get around the fact that it's going to be long, right? Like if you're in a medical office and you've got some sort of thing that they need to sign or look at, there's going to be paragraphs to deal with. Like it's not like everything can be boiled down to 5 or 6 quippy little phrases, but even still, like how can I say these 5 sentences in 2? Is there things I can say here, that's not legal contracts? I mean, that's different. I'm talking about just like intake, descriptions, onboarding stuff, all that kind of stuff, or just like your sales collateral, whatever it is. And there's some things that you can do to fix it. You want me to walk through some of those?
Yeah, love it. Let's hear it.
Yeah. And so, the first thing I would suggest is, sit down and take kind of like your overall assumptions about your messaging. Look at your supplemental marketing, sales, onboarding information. Like take an honest look at it, and if you can, I'd say print it out. Like get it on a piece. Something's different when you feel like you can just keep scrolling down a page. It kind of plays a trick on your brain. But if you had to print out that document or that packet, whatever else, and you realize, oh my gosh, this is 12 pages long. Like you just don't know that until you actually can physically hold it. It just helps make it real. And then, like I said, before even reading any of it, and maybe you bring some of your staff in on this if you have staff, or you get a friend of yours that knows you're running this business to look at it, and just slide it across the table, and you look at it too. Just like, don't read it, just from a visual volume, like how this looks. Would you actually want to try to read this? And just look at it, because you're just going to see chunk text and paragraph after paragraph and paragraph. And that will just kind of give you a good gut check in that, like, okay, man, this is hefty. Does it need to be hefty? There's a client of mine that I worked with. They're in the kind of the oil and gas safety world. They help drill sites get the materials they need to like safely drill and do frack stuff like that. Anyway, they have all these kind of safety things that companies can rent from them to have on site for their crew. And I'm not kidding you, I think it was like a 27 page deck of each. And it goes like every product had a thing. And there was a picture and a whole bunch of exclamation. It was just, and they're like, hey, I think this is too cumbersome. And I said, I think you're right. And we took 27 things, whittled it down to the main aspects of each thing, and we boiled it down to basically like a front and back sheet that's well laid out. There was a lot more to the point, and we decided to use that as a starting point. And then for some of the items that typically went together, then we created like, okay, here's kind of like an expanded version, but it's still only an extra page just on this topic. And so they could hand things to people. And if they say, hey, I want to know more about this, then they had something else to give them. The other way versus the way they were doing it was, here's the entire menu of what we offer. We're going to dump it on your head and let you figure out what it is. And hopefully you come up breathing. And it was just a change in the way and they found that to be so much more helpful and successful that they have conversations with people instead of just blank stares and not knowing what to do with it. It was huge. And so sometimes, man, and this is the other thing, that how you can fix it. Sometimes you need to eliminate like hundreds of words. You just do. Because you're just redundant and you're saying too much stuff. Other times you just need better formatting. Use some headlines, use some HUDs, some subheadings, use some bold font and non-bold font. Use bullet points go such a long way just to make things more visually tech friendly to read, because people just want to be able to scan it. And so even if it's not less words, but you just format it and arrange it in a way, people can see it and digest it so much easier. And so it's just going to make you feel more pleasant to work with.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's easy to create the 15-page document, but can you whittle it down to, here's a phrase that we use, the minimum effective words.
Yeah,
The
that's great.
minimum effective words. Can you get that message, whatever you're trying to communicate, down to the minimum effective words? Because we live in a attention starved culture, and people aren't trying to sit around and read 20-minute emails per email. We don't have time for that. They got to be able to
Right.
scan that. So I love it. And I guess an old kind of sales rule of thought or rule of thumb was, if you're going to write more than like a paragraph, you probably need to pick up the phone and call the person anyway. So I
Right.
mean, at the end of the day, it shouldn't.
Right.
There's some emails that just shouldn't even be written. But
Yeah.
it's good stuff. Good stuff. I think for any business owner. And then what's our third item here, Brad? You've got a third tip for us.
Yeah. Yeah. The third assumption that we make after you've got your messaging cleared up, and then after you've made the decision that I don't want to make them read too much, there's still one last assumption that we all make. And it's that you assume your customers remember what you told them. You
Mm,
assume that when you told them something once, that they automatically remembered it and they cherished it and they cataloged it and they calendared it and they set reminders for it. Yeah, they remember that because I told them. It's this internal struggle because, and I mean, again, this isn't something that everybody else does. I do the same thing. Whether we want to admit it or not, deep down, man, we just secretly think that what we have to say is more important than anything else going on in the world. That's just human nature. Well, I got to say this, and that whatever I said is infinitely more valuable than whatever else you have going on. Apply that to your marriage, your parenting, your workplace, whatever. And then obviously to our customers. But in reality, it's just not. Man, we got 100 pieces of information hitting us all the time: deadlines, contracts, emails, appointments, so much information. And with that amount of information coming at us, it's only human that just something's going to be forgotten. It's inevitable. Our customers are human, just like you, and they're going to remember some things, but they're going to forget even more. And instead of letting that become a point of frustration, which is just normal to feel, man, they didn't read that email, they didn't get that thing, I told them that already, why are they asking about that? You gotta learn to work with it. And so just set the expectation in your own brain: I'm about to send this out, they're gonna need to be reminded. And decide now that they're probably not going to respond to the first email. They're not going to respond to the first request for that intake information. They're not going to respond, even though they asked you a question and you responded back. They're not going to respond immediately because they're not going to be as informed as you would like them to be.
hmm
And so they're going to ask questions you already answered. They're going to misplace stuff. They're going to need to resend the documents. It just happens. And so it's just a part of that process of allowing you to help them solve their problem. And so I think just take it as an opportunity to serve them, and you'll see your business start to really thrive in that.
Well, I think that is a good reminder. I mean, in the consulting world that we live in, I think you and I, Brad, working in as consultants,
Right.
clients engage us to bring simplicity to the complexity,
Right.
to bring clarity in the midst of complexity. And sometimes their complex world doesn't just change because they start an engagement with us. It's still
Right.
complex, it's still chaos. And they're
Right.
bringing us on, they're bringing you on Thrive Collective if you're the consultant listening to this, because you're bringing bandwidth and a system to solve their issue. You're the capacity they don't have.
Right.
So I love what you're saying. Just expect it as a natural next step that you're going to need to remind them, whether that's progress reviews or whether that's simply reminders. Just keeping things visible, creating order out of their world is what they're engaging you for. And so I love your tip. Just plan on it and be prepared for it.
Yeah. And for me, man, it's really helped curb my bitterness. Because especially when we're all running our own deadlines and we've got stuff we're trying to work, and then somebody that's my customer that I love and they've hired me and I'm working with them, and then they pop in and like, hey, where's that thing? I'm like, I totally sent you that like yesterday. Like it's just helped me like, okay, they got their own world going on. They're gonna need to be reminded. I'm just gonna and I'll proactively do that too. Like just check in if I haven't heard from them, set those kind of things on my calendar. hey, just in case you forgot, need this in on Wednesday. Here it is again. I don't ask them to refer to the old email. I just give it to them all over again. I don't know if you saw the last email or not, but here it is again. Here's the attachment. We're going to need this by Wednesday. And just go ahead and assume and do those steps for them. And so far, when I've been able to make those adjustments, and people are they've always very much appreciated. They don't come in feeling like they're making a mistake or angry. They're just, okay, great. Yeah, thank you for that. I forgot about it. Perfect. And yeah, so yeah, there's a couple of ways I think you can fix that aspect, that assumption that you have is just make a note of every time a customer asks you something that you thought you already communicated. Just make a note, because odds are in the future, other customers are going to do the same thing. Maybe they overlooked it, or maybe you're making the mistake of number one of that assumption of you think they want to read and your information's too heavy. That's a great place to start. And then look at your current systems and find places that you can put in reminders, put in second touches, add check-ins. This is a part of how you work. And then that way you're going to know that you're doing your job by giving them a chance to raise questions, and they're going to feel cared about and served and loved along the way.
And again, this goes back to the whole stewardship mindset.
Sure.
If the core outcome of a client engagement is to bring success and results to the client's business as a consultant, then building in some of these pre-decisions, these new beliefs, and these systems, these reminder systems, all help to prod that ball forward toward that desired outcome.
Yeah.
So I just think what you're doing here, Brad, is brilliant. You're just taking what's true in the environment that we work in and creating systems to help ensure that the most important priorities get done with the client. So I think it's a great way to communicate. I mean, it's true. We may be dropping the ball here, guys, in these three key areas, thinking the customer is just like us, or assuming that they're like to read, or assuming that they remember all that they're supposed to do. And so I
Right.
love some of these tips that you're sharing with us, Brad, that if we could fortify our systems, we can ultimately serve those clients better, steward that opportunity and responsibility, and lead them to the desired outcome. It's great.
Yeah. 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 And it's so, I mean, again, this is stuff that I didn't grow up an expert in this. I'm still working it out in my business. There are things that they're just because they're assumptions. They don't just kind of go away. You got to be aware that they're there, and then ask, how am I assuming this about my customers right now? And making sure that
Yeah.
we're thinking through that.
Well, I know this list of these three items, as well as some fix it tips, you plan to make available for the Thrive Collective community. So,
Yeah.
Thrive Collective, we'll put a link in the show notes to some recommended next steps and tips that Brad's prepared for you. We'll put a link in the show notes. So, however you're viewing or listening to this podcast, just go ahead and tie into that in the description. You'll see a link to that document. And Brad, I'll just ask right now, like this conversation's been awesome. Are there any final encouragements that you'd like to leave the Thrive Collective community? And then also, if somebody wants to reach out to you, how would they best do that?
Yeah. No, that's a great question, man. One of my favorite parts about the work that I get to do is I just get to help the good guys do better, and help good businesses doing great things. More often than not, it's people who have great products and great services that just have some things that they're not an expert in, because nobody's an expert in everything. And so I think if you can just dial in on that as a business owner, if you're listening to this, and just remember, hey man, I feel like what we're doing is good. I feel the service that we offer is good. I feel like our heart is there, our passion is there. And then let that carry into the other things that you need help in, or can take care of, or bring others in to help with, so that um, the thing you're so passionate about helping your customers with can just happen for more people, and you get to see that transformation, and it's awesome. And so hopefully things like this don't rob and suck the joy out of why you're doing what you do, but will enable you to do them better and reach more people and change more lives with how you're doing your work. Yeah, and if, as far as reaching out to me, I mean, I live in a lot of different spaces in this. As far as tangible things, most people will interact with me first about their website, and then we'll go into strategy after that. I also do a ton of coaching through this stuff. Obviously, this side of it, like, there's kind of a whole little rigmarole that I'll take clients through just to kind of evaluate their systems from their customers' perspective. So that's something, I'd be happy to help bring in, and we can have a conversation about that. Or just in general, if you want to do the work yourself, because that's more budget friendly, but you want somebody just to help you do it right. That's something that I do in that as well. And so there's, either do it yourself or I need this done for me. There's different ways that I work with people in that. And so they can go, check out this. By this time, the website will be refined and changed to clarityalwayswins.com. That's clarityalwayswins.com. And you'll be able to see more about how I can help. And there's a schedule a call button on there that links to my schedule. You get to talk with me and deal with me. We'll hop on the call for 15, 20 minutes and maybe more, and just see if there's something I can do to help you tweak some of these systems.
That's awesome, Brad. I tell you what, Thrive Collective family, it's such an honor to have Brad join our conversation today, invest in this. Again, remember, every topic that we bring to you, it's designed to help you make more money, avoid costly mistakes that come from doing it wrong, like blowing it with your customers, what we're talking about here. And then also fully integrate your faith into your life and leadership. Remember, business owners, entrepreneurs, friends, this is your podcast designed for those purposes. So, hey, I'm Rob Hughes, your host. It's been a joy to serve you, and we'll see you in the next episode. Take care.